Hi everyone, Paul here from familywheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And this week we're in a car that really did reinvigorate the Hyundai brand when it was first launched back in 2000. Since then, we have gotten into a few different generations of the Sante Fe. We're now into the third generation, which came out back in 2012, but we do have a fairly significant refresh on our hands here for 2017. Exterior styling's changed a little bit. We have some improved aerodynamics. The two engines that are available have been tuned differently as well, and you add all that up, and Hyundai says that we should see about an 11% better fuel economy out of this latest Sante Fe than we've seen in the previous years of this third generation. Now, the Sante Fe has been a very popular choice here in Canada for years now, falling just behind the Elantra in the Hyundai lineup in terms of sales. But we actually have the Hyundai Tucson, the smaller, more compact SUV in the company's lineup, eclipsing the Sante Fe for the first few months of 2017 in terms of sales. These vehicles both fall into that compact SUV segment, competing with the likes of the Subaru Forester, the Honda CR-V, the Toyota RAV4, the Kia Sportage, but this is certainly on the fatter end when it comes to compact SUVs. You can also get it in the XL version, which gives you a 6 or 7 passenger version of this car. I'm curious to hop into this vehicle, compare it to those other more compact SUVs, and see how it stacks up this week on Family Wheels. Well, there is no shortage of options and trims and packages to wade through when you start looking at the Sante Fe as an option. Up here in Canada, the base price for this Sante Fe Sport, which is the 5-passenger version of this car, comes in at around $28,500, which seems pretty reasonable until you start to look at it more closely. That's just a front-wheel drive car, and to get into an all-wheel drive version of this car, you're looking at about $33,000. It's also really basic on that base price here on the interior. You're getting front heated seats, you're getting a rear backup camera, and you're getting Bluetooth connectivity, but beyond that, it's a pretty basic car. You can get into a Honda CR-V with all-wheel drive, really nicely equipped for about $29,000, and you can get into a Subaru Forester, because all Foresters come with all-wheel drive, for about $26,000. And again, they've really upped their game too in terms of standard equipment. However, once we get into some of the slightly higher level trims, like this SE trim that I'm in here this week, with the 2.4 liter 4-cylinder engine on board, that's the base engine that you can get on this car, we're looking at about $34,000, and this is the most popular trim of this vehicle, and you start to see a lot more. You're getting leather seating surfaces, you're getting a heated steering wheel, great big panorama sunroof, dual zone climate control, so you can see why people would tend to shift into this kind of trim package up here in Canada. It's certainly a much more livable vehicle with a lot more amenities to it as well. But then there's the second engine option, which again is going to bump the price up on you. It's a 2-liter turbocharged power plant, and it's going to give you a lot more pep than what we're driving around here this week. It has great fuel economy. We're averaging about 9 liters per 100 kilometers here this week, which for a car of this size is really respectable. However, I was expecting it to be a little bit lifeless. It's not quite as bad as I expected, but certainly on the highway, when you go to pass somebody on a hill, it doesn't quite have the juice that you're looking for. Getting that turbocharged power plant is going to give you 55 more horsepower. It also, when you include the towing package, gives you a 3,500 pound towing capacity, which is very respectable for a car of this size. Personally, I'd probably lean toward that turbo package just to make it a little bit more interesting, but then again, that price is going to start to climb on you. The top level trim with a turbo in the Sante Fe is coming in at $44,500 here in Canada. That's a long way away from that base price of $28,500. And then if you need a little bit more capacity, whether it's power or towing or humans as well, there's the Sante Fe XL, which is built on exactly the same platform as this car, but you have passenger seating for 6 or 7. You have a 3.3 liter V6 engine on board, which is going to give you a lot more oomph, and because of that, you also have a 5,000 pound towing capacity available to you in that car. So another option to weigh out in this vehicle. Now, as I mentioned, any 5-passenger version of the Sante Fe is going to be called the Sante Fe Sport, but there are a couple of things that really aren't very sporty about this vehicle. It's got a lot of body roll once you get it into the corners, and I know that SUVs aren't really going to be cornering machines for the most part, but even comparing this to other vehicles that compete directly with it, it does tend to want to bob and weave quite a lot once you get it into corners. Another thing, speaking of ride comfort, is the noise in this vehicle. It does have a lot of cabin noise noise in here at about 67 decibels at 100 kilometers an hour with our decibel reader test. That's on the noisier end. And then, yeah, this base 2.4 liter engine just isn't particularly inspiring. It doesn't really blow your socks off. But if you're going to use this specifically as a city driver, this might be a really nice option for you because it's not going to soak up the fuel quite so much as the turbo every time you hit a stop sign or a stoplight, because those turbos tend to want to spool up, particularly if you have a heavy foot, and that means that your numbers, your real life fuel economy numbers, aren't going to be particularly good with a turbo in an urban environment. Now, we've got great fuel economy numbers out of this vehicle despite the fact that we still have a traditional 6-speed automatic transmission. This, while many other manufacturers like Honda, like Subaru, are going with continuously variable transmissions. These are meant to be a bit more fuel efficient, but a lot of people don't love them because they can suck the power out of a vehicle. Now, they're getting way better. The programming is getting tweaked. CVTs are getting far better, but if you're still just a little wary of them, it's nice to have a 6-speed traditional automatic transmission on board, just as an option, you know, when you're shopping around here in the Santa Fe. Well, as part of this 2017 refresh that I've been talking about, we've got some new exterior lines on this car, which I think look really good. We've got new headlights, we've got a new front grille, the bumpers have changed. This doesn't just help with curb appeal, but it also helps with aerodynamics, and that folds into that fuel economy that I've been talking about. But my big issue with this car, as soon as I stepped inside, I kind of went, man, opportunity lost. This dashboard is looking really dated. The lines don't quite match up with what the competitors are doing. The switchware feels a little bit cheap. This tiny 5-inch infotainment system screen comes on a lot of the more cheap trims of this vehicle. You have to bump up into the really high level trims of this car to get a larger 8-inch infotainment system screen, and it's grainy. The rear backup camera doesn't look particularly good looking through this tiny screen. When you compare this to the competition, they're offering larger screens in their base vehicles, and they're also offering Android Auto and Apple CarPlay on a lot of other competitors as well. This is the kind of system that really a lot of buyers are looking for right now. You can't get Apple CarPlay in any version of this vehicle, and you can only get Android Auto in the highest level trims of the Santa Fe. And if we had a larger infotainment system screen to work with in the Santa Fe, you could incorporate the dual zone climate control readouts, which are kind of looking rather separate here in this vehicle, put those right up onto the infotainment system screen, still use the old school dials and buttons to control the temperatures, but just put the temperature readouts in the infotainment system screen. It would really help make this look a lot cleaner in terms of the cabin. But while I do have some issues with the interior in the Santa Fe, something that's going to be far more important for families is safety, and this does have a top Safety Pick Plus rating from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. My issue with that, though, is that the plus of the top Safety Pick Plus means that you're getting kind of safety features like adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, forward collision mitigation braking. You're getting those as options in this vehicle. They need to be options in order for the IIHS to give you that plus rating. Toyota's putting that kind of equipment into a lot of their vehicles, even base trims of their vehicles. They're leading the charge on this front, but the only vehicle in the Santa Fe lineup that you can get that bit of equipment in is the top trim. It's about $44,500, and I wish that we could see that in more trims of the Santa Fe, because it's a nice safety net. If you take your eye off the road for just that split second, you do something dumb, the car's going to look after you. It's a nice feature to have. I'd like to see it on more trims of this car. Well, it's when you get here into the second row that you start to notice those little incremental differences in the Hyundai SUV lineup. So in the Tucson, there are 38 inches of second passenger legroom, 39 inches in the Santa Fe Sport, and 40 inches in the Santa Fe XL. And that may not sound like a lot, but it actually does make a big difference, particularly when it comes to car seats. Now, here in the Santa Fe Sport, as an adult, I'm 6'2", lots of headroom here, and my legroom with the driver's seat adjusted for a driver who's about 6 feet tall is also really good. I like the back seat in this car. They're supportive, they're very comfortable, and for longer road trips, I could recline as well if I wanted to. That's a nice feature, especially if you're a taller person and you are grazing the roof line, or even taller than myself. But it's when you flip this kind of average size convertible car seat into rear-facing mode that we see front passenger legroom really get fairly tight. According to our measuring tape, we've got about 26.5 inches from the back of the front seat cushion up to the glove box. That's actually less less legroom than we saw last week in the Hyundai Elantra, which is a compact sedan. This is where the Sante Fe XL would give you that little bit of extra legroom, but you kind of have to weigh it out in your mind because that's a much larger vehicle. It's about 8 inches longer in total. We have a V6 engine on board, so it's not going to be as efficient. You know, rear-facing car seats aren't around for that long in the total of a child's life, so is it worth squeezing into something like this for the short term, for that better efficiency in a slightly smaller vehicle? You're going to have to weigh that out in your mind. The benefit to the Sante Fe XL, of course, is that you wind up having a little bit of extra capacity here in the vehicle with either 6 or 7 passenger variants, and that means that, you know, if you wind up doing a bit of carpooling down the road or whatever, that's something that's going to be a lot easier in that car. Now, just a couple of other little things to mention if you are considering the Sante Fe as a family hauler. First up are these built-in sunshades like we have in our tester. They may seem kind of gimmicky if you don't have a family of your own, but trust me, if you've got young kids on the way, these are invaluable because the aftermarket, you know, sunshades with the suction cups, they always blow off. If you accidentally put the windows down, you destroy them. These are just nicely built in, and I've actually seen parents drool over these things before. A nice little feature. Another thing that I'm not so crazy about though, here in our sort of mid-range tester, we have leather seating surfaces, and even though this is a family-focused car, Hyundai's decided to put these perforated seats back here. All these tiny little pinhole perforations fill up with stuff they're really tough to keep clean. Now, the trunk capacity on the Sante Fe is actually really respectable. It's, for compact SUV, over 1,000 liters, puts it right on par with the much larger Subaru Outback. And if you need a little bit of extra room on top of that, you can always look at the Sante Fe XL, which has over 1,150 liters. Flip that third row up in the XL, and you've got about 350 liters behind that third row. It's going to be tight, but kind of consider it to be the size of a small sedan's trunk. But you can see that our standardized trunk test, a stroller, a diaper bag, soccer ball, a couple bags of groceries, all fit in really nicely. It's not an issue at all. Well, the Hyundai Sante Fe checks a lot of boxes for families. We have a top safety rating. We have great fuel economy in this new 2017 version. We have a lot of different configurations, so you really can find just the right vehicle for you, whether it's 5-passenger, 6-passenger, 7-passenger, front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. You really can get your pick in this car. And then we also have that great warranty from Hyundai, 5-year, 100,000 kilometer. It's really tough to beat in the business. But even though this car has undergone some really significant changes for 2017, we have over 350 new components in this car and its refresh. It still doesn't feel particularly contemporary in my mind when we compare it to a lot of the other competition that's out there. The interior is starting to feel a little bit dated. The infotainment system isn't as good as we see in many even other Hyundai vehicles. And then we also have standard features which are starting to wane compared to the competition. Hyundai's been known for great standard features for years now, but other brands have taken notice. So it's not just the Korean brands that are offering this up anymore. Honda, Toyota, Subaru, they're all upping their game in this department. But we do have that extra size, which does make a big difference in this compact SUV segment if you just want that little bit of extra room for all your stuff and your family. But I'd like to know what your thoughts are on this vehicle. Maybe you're cross-shopping right now with other competitors in this segment. Let us know your list of pros and cons, and then check out my list at familywheels.ca, where I've put together a bullet point report card for you. Next time I see you, we're in the largest pickup truck in the Toyota segment. It's the Tundra. Had some changes for 2017. We're going to look at those. That's in about 7 days from now. Until then, have a great week.